Hey guys, and welcome back to another Top 10. Today, I'm going to be discussing the top 10 strongest stone evolutions. Now, I'm going to keep this specifically to stone evolutions, since otherwise, we'd have a lot of Pokemon fighting for a spot on this list, since there are a decent bit of Pokemon that evolve just by giving it a thing, and then boom, it's an evolution. Ursaluna evolves from the Peat block, Scyther evolves into Cleaver with Black Augurite, and heaven forbid that Urshifu count, because Kubfu, the Scroll of Waters, and the Scroll of Darkness gives you a full-on legendary Pokemon. So, to keep it simple, elemental stone evolutions. Does that sound fair enough? Maybe the other alternative evolution conditions could be another video, if only to fuel what's gonna be my Ursaluna addiction for when it's released in Scarlet and Violet. I mean, it evolves during the full moon, and my favorite Pokemon's Umbreon. I like my night sky theme, alright? Now, without further ado, Mystic Reads, and let's begin. So, this was a Pokemon that could have, and normally would have been higher on the list. It's out of respect for it that it's here, because he's been a fixture in any metagame with a good steel type since it was introduced, and its pre-evolution was doing it first. So this line has been OU from generations 3 up until generation 8. 6 whole generations of greatness. But when terrestrialization happened, the steels it was meant to magnet pull began to find a way out, and the overall stronger metagame with these terrestrializations meant that its bulk wasn't as impressive anymore. Evolving from the Thunderstone since Sword and Shield, we have Magnezone. Honestly, I feel bad for it though, since it lost access to hidden power in Gen 8, and now in Gen 9, everything has ways around its magnet pool. Or even worse, Goldango being a ghost outright lets it ignore it. Well, this is a list of the strong, right? So let's talk about why Magnezone is here. It has a powerful 130 base special attack stat, and mostly solid stats across the board, barring a low 60 base speed. It's able to trap and typically knock out a Steel-type Pokemon that would otherwise cause problems due to their overall excellence, and being able to force the opponent into possibly terrestrializing has some merit to it. It's an excellent Volt Switch pivot, and it's an excellent wall breaker that's capable of checking some of the bulky waters that could otherwise stifle an aggressive team. In terms of set variety, the notable ones are the Choice Specs Attacker and the Iron Defense Body Press Steel type killer. Ah yes, from the underwhelming Togetic to the amazing Togekiss, all with the help of a shiny stone. And then it only got better in X and Y when it was bestowed the fairy typing in order to make it a near perfect answer to Garchomp. What's it gonna do? Use Earthquake? Use Outrage? Simply existing around Garchomp forced it to run Iron Head, just so it could hit Togekiss. And Togekiss was typically tough enough to take the hit and fire back with the Dazzling Gleam. And this is coming from a 120 special attack stat, so it's gonna do quite a dent to the powerful Landshark. But offensively isn't where Togekiss shines, although having 120 special attack does help. With its excellent defensive kit consisting of great defensive stats, 80 speed, which is pretty okay, and an excellent move pull, it can be ran as more of a bulky Pokemon than an offensive one if need be. Roost, Thunderwave, Tailwind, Wish, and Trick all give it excellent support capabilities. But where it shines the most is its ability to be one of the most single obnoxious Pokemon you've ever fought. With Thunderwave, Roost, Air Slash in either Nasty Plot or Dazzling Gleam, and then stack Serene Grace on top of that? Well, no one wants to get hit with a 60% chance to flinch every turn. I would not want to stare that down in battle. And when you thought Stealth Rock could keep it in check, it could decide to ignore the pebbles with the pair of boots it bought at the store. Definitely excellent. And this is all ignoring how in Generation 8 VGC, it was an excellent redirector with Follow Me, to the point where it got outright banned for being used too much. If I was a doubles player, it would be higher on this list. Do I have to go over what Ludicolo is capable of? I think we're all familiar with it for one reason or another. Be it Mirror B's team, the weird looking one in the Detective Pikachu movie, or how it has always managed to show up on rain teams to some capacity. While it isn't as outright strong as some of the Pokemon on the list, it more than makes up for it with its overall versatility and ability to be a rain dance sweeper. It can also completely counter rain by using the speed it gains from Swift Swim to set up Sunny Day and shut down other rain teams. It can be a tank in the rain with Rain Dish, which heals it in rain like it's leftovers. And then you can add on to that by simply just giving it leftovers. It has solid enough bulk for the set, and solid enough offenses for rain. Sure, base 90 doesn't seem like the best on paper, but in practice, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of its Hydro Pump. I also wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of Scald on bulky sets either. It's got its flaws, but so does every Pokemon. It's got highs, but it also has its lows. If it were better overall, it would be higher on this list. But a competent Rain Pilot has zero issue using Ludicolo to its absolute fullest potential. Speaking of higher highs and lower lows, this is going to be a pretty simple Pokemon to talk about, because unlike the rest of the list, the gameplay here is probably at its most simple. This isn't going to be one of those segments where I feel a need to go through every asset of the Pokemon, because let me tell you right now, there isn't that much to cover here. But what is, there is more than worth it. So sit down and let me tell you something about Rising Voltage. It doubles the damage on a grounded Pokemon in electric terrain. That's pretty good. And you know what isn't on the ground? Levitate Pokemon or flying types, which are historically weak to electric. So unless you're a specific few flying types with a solid immunity to electric, the electric terrain boosted Rising Voltage is gonna hurt like crazy. Yeah, Alolan Raichu EMZ is cool too, don't get me wrong. Great set. But I like my big Oonga Boonga hit hard for a bunch of damage for a lot of turn strats, and Electric Terrain Raichu does it like few others. And this is without accounting for the fact that its ability Surge Surfer gives it double speed too. Alolan Raichu basically functions as a weather sweeper. Now, Rising Voltage isn't all it has. Psyshock, Grass Knot, Surf, and Volt Switch are all good moves too, and they can all be buffed by Nasty Plot. But Rising Voltage is arguably just its best move. Remember when Chandelure was going to have Shadow Tag? I do. Unfortunately, Game Freak made the decision of giving it Infiltrator instead. Don't get me wrong, Infiltrator is still great. I mean, just ask any Dragapult player who got really tired of Shed-Tail back when it was allowed in competitive singles. I just want to see how devastating it could have been by constantly trapping opponents in and slamming into them with fire blasts that were coming off of an absolutely terrifying base 145 special attack stat. For comparison, so you know just how staggering that number is, that's the special attack stat of Eternatus. Its bulk is okay, but it isn't why you're using Chandelure. And its base 80 speed was rather fortuitous for it. That 80 speed made it either an excellent choice scarfer, or it made it just slow enough with the quiet nature and 0 speed EVs and IVs to where you could run it on Trick Room, where its speed was no longer an issue and you could fire off Life Orb boosted attacks without too much hassle. Speaking of Life Orb boosted attacks, it has plenty of good ones to fire off. Fire Blast, Overheat if needed, Shadow Ball, Psychic, and Energy Ball are all very good attacks. Hex is pretty alright if you build your team around status, and Calm Mind can make Chandelure even more dangerous. Being a ghost type also helps it, because it forces Rapid Spinners to think twice about trying to remove the hazards that chip into them and make Chandelure more dangerous. Flame Body and Flash Fire are also great abilities too. So with this variety of moves, sets, and abilities bolstered by a powerful special attack, I'd call that a pretty damn good Pokemon. This could very well be recency bias, but Sharpness Gallade has been killing it recently. Sharpness boosting slicing moves by 50% is amazing. It turns his coverage options like Night Slash, Aqua Cutter, and Leaf Blade into dangerous offensive tools. It also turns Psycho Cut into a very powerful psychic stab that it's needed for a long time, all without risking a Zen headbutt miss. And then Sacred Sword too? Sacred Sword is actually very good now. In fact, it's stronger than close combat. Sharpness took it from 90 to 135 in terms of base power, and it also happens to ignore defense boosts. The Choice Scarf set has been doing wonders, because while it is prediction reliant, it hits hard enough to justify the need to predict now. Base 125 attack is pretty strong, and 110 base special defense means it can take a hit from the special side pretty well too. 68 HP isn't too shabby, 65 physical defense is rough, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be able to do everything. It just needs to be able to hit like a truck in the late game. Base 80 speed and a scarf makes it very usable. Of course, since we are on the topic of Gallade, even without Mega Evolution no longer being around, it's worth mentioning that Mega Gallade was pretty solid when it was around. And in National decks, Inner Focus, ignoring Intimidate, and access to Triple Axle made it an excellent check to the incredibly common Landorus Therian. So it's had a pretty good run, all things considered. Now this is power, and on a Pokemon that makes excellent use of what it has to work with. If you've been watching my channel for a long time now, you know that here we are fans of Nidoking. Let's all take a moment to respect Sheer Force Nidoking's ability to simply ignore Life Orb's pitiful attempt to make it take recoil damage. So long as the move has an effect, Sheer Force will ignore it and the Life Orb, all while buffing up the move it uses by an additional 30%. Base 85 special attack may not look like much, but when it's being jacked up by Sheer Force, it does a lot for it. However, even if one may not consider that to be enough for one reason or another, its coverage options and the amount of Pokemon it hits for super effective damage will turn what seems to be on paper a pretty normal standard Pokemon into a powerhouse beyond human magnitude. Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, Sludge Wave, Earth Power, etc. are all excellent coverage moves, and are all boosted by Sheer Force. There are very few walls in the game Nidoking can't break, and there are few very offensive Pokemon that Nidoking doesn't threaten. Of course, there is only one true issue with Nidoking, now isn't there? Base 85 speed isn't cutting it these days. Of course, just like Chandelure and Gallade before it, it doesn't have to make the cut when you can offset that speed with a Choice Scarf. Sure, you're locked into one move and you're prediction reliant, and Life Orb is gone, but in return, more offensively oriented Pokemon are gonna have to think twice before challenging you. Because if those frailer offensive Pokemon get too comfy, then they're gonna find themselves blasted back into the Pokemon Center. Just because Nidoking is short, standing at only 4 feet, doesn't mean that you can sleep on it. Otherwise, it's gonna put you to sleep, and you'll wake up with a black eye, a missing wallet, and probably a few bruises. Respect the king. This is gonna be the one Pokemon on this list where I'm not gonna sit down and talk about how hard hitting it is. Sometimes it isn't about hitting hard. It's about providing support that's so obnoxiously hard to deal with at times to your hard-hitting teammates that it basically creates a game state of you either have the answer or you don't. And we're gonna talk about the best Pokemon at doing just this. Alolan Ninetales is the poster child for Auroraville. If Auroraville were a movie, this would be the main character. For those unaware, Auroraville is just a reflect and light screen combined, but can only be used when snow is active. This would be problematic if Ninetales didn't come equipped with Snow Warning. That fertility that ice types suffer from, it doesn't really matter when you have a base speed of 109 to almost guarantee that you're getting screens set up. Scizor probably moved up on my list of favorite Pokemon, just because forcing an Alolan Ninetales to switch out instead of setting up Auroraville in fear of Bullet Punch was just that cathartic. Having the Fairy typing, access to Moonblast, unmissable Blizzards, Nasty Plot, and Foul Play to punish physically frail attackers, and also for bulky waters, it could be packing Freeze Dry. After all, what if you're trying to use Pelipper's lower speed to get Drizzle up to beat its hail? Hope you didn't plan on you turning out, lest you're promptly KO'd by a quad super effective move. It may not have much, if any, real versatility, but as the number one on this list is gonna show you, versatility is great, but sometimes winning by a simple and easy game plan is just better. Ninetales proves this by setting up screens while holding Light Clay, finding its home into some bulky sweepers, setting up, and pummeling. The queen of supporting Pokemon on this list. So, funny thing here. This is a Pokemon that outright just used to be stronger. This is the only instance of Game Freak going out of their way to nerf a Pokemon's base stats. 150 attack and special attack was just too much in Blade form. And 150 special defense and defense was just too much in Shield form. And then they nerfed King Shield. It doesn't sharply lower attack on contact now, just regular. Meaning it gets beat out by, let's say, Defiant Bisharp spamming knockoff for turns on end. They did it dirty. So why is Aegislash still this high on the list? Well, firstly, I will respect the legacy of my GOAT. And secondly, it's still very good. Sure, it's no longer the uber it once was, but that doesn't make it bad. It just means that Sword and Shield were ironically bad for it. It was still so excellent in UU though, that it got banned. So that means it's still ban-worthy from something, and that's a plus. Steel and Ghost is a really good typing, and by all accounts, it has probably some of the best moves it could ask for, even if not many. It could also do basically anything it wanted, and it would be decent at it. Personally though, I like my occasional broken mess, and I think that Aegislash could have kept its base 150 in its stats. But alas, it's still the second strongest Pokemon on this list. Although I don't know if not being nerfed would have still been enough to give it the number 1 slot, given who occupies it. Galarian Darmanitan has got to be one of the most egregiously disgusting and busted non-legendary Pokemon I have ever laid eyes on. And the ironic part is that there isn't even much to talk about. This is the most simple, dumb Pokemon I have managed to see used in competitive play, but it's also insanely powerful. Don't get me wrong, it's frail. 105 HP doesn't compensate well for 55s in both defenses. What it does have is 95 speed, 140 attack, and access to Guerrilla Tactics. Guerrilla Tactics makes it to where Darmanitan, as it is referred, is locked into the first move it uses, but it receives a 50% increase to its physical attack. What you just listened to was me describing the Choice Band as an ability. Now, it also happens that it can still hold an item. Like, I don't know, Choice Band. Why not, right? You're already locked into a move anyways. Or you can make it go fast with the Choice Scarf. Because once again, you're locked into your move anyways. That's right. The most thinking you really have to do with Galarian Darmanitan, maybe outside of what moves you want it to have, outside of U-Turn and Icicle Crash, is what item you want it to have. Because there are 2 right options, and they're both equally right. Its attacks were not wallable, and it had enough coverage to pretty much threaten any wall that wanted to make the bold attempt. And Choice Scarf threatened offensive Pokemon that wanted to take it out before it could get going. Earthquake and Flare Blitz were the only 2 coverage options it actually needed. I once heard a saying, it's called Guerrilla Tactics because you lead it and click U-Turn. No thought required. I wish I remembered who said it, but they're right. And that's it. Thanks for watching. But as per usual, I gotta ask, what are your opinions? What do you think is the strongest stone evolution? Did I miss some super threat that overpowers even Galarian Darmanitan? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. With that said, I need to grab an Infiltrator Chandelure to deal with Auroraville screens. Imagine if Galarian Darmanitan was now backed by a defense buff from Snow and double defense with Veil. I think I'm gonna catch a cold. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching my content. With Scarlet and Violet DLC on the way, we have a lot to be excited for. Not just that though, but I've got a bunch of other cool series planned throughout the year that I'm sure you guys will love. If you want to support my other forms of content, over on Mystic Reads, I read fanfics. One of them right now is Road to be a Pokemon Master Kanto Edition, where Ash and Serena start from the very beginning and journey through Kanto together. On Mystic Umbreon Shorts, I do other exclusive Pokemon content such as Pokemon Facts, and on Saturdays, I upload my top 5 favorite Pokemon of a type. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an excellent day.